We join with other UUs in the tradition of inviting the gong 3 times. Once in remembrance of those who have lived, built, and nurtured this congregation before us. Once with appreciation for all of us calling it home today, and once with anticipation and hope for those who will be part of the congregation in the future. Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is Sunday, March 8th. My name's Kathy Mitchell, and I'm your service leader for today. We want to welcome everyone joining us online and in person to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation. Here you can be yourself, but not by yourself. Whomever you love, however you describe yourself or name the holy, you are welcome here. We especially welcome those of you who are here for the first time or are recently new to us and returning again. We're so glad that you're here with us today. If there's anyone visiting for the first time, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves, although you don't have to if you don't want to.
I'm Trish.
Hi, Trish. Glad you're here. Everyone, please stay for coffee, tea, and conversation after the service so we can all get to know one another better. We begin our service with the acknowledgement that our congregation rests on the unceded lands of Indigenous people, including the Cow Creek Band of the Umpqua tribe. Their name graces our congregation and the river that flows through this land. We make this land acknowledgement in recognition of the Cow Creek Umpqua, the Yankalakalapuya, and the Southern Molalla and other tribes who have been forcibly displaced, yet who continue to live, lead, create, and belong here. May this acknowledgement move us toward repair, relationship, and right action. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are diverse in faith. We think for ourselves and honor how life experience shapes what we believe. We are Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, Muslim, pagan, atheist, agnostic, and those who weave together more than one path. We come from radical roots and a long history of people who sought a faith grounded in freedom, in reason, and in love. Unitarian Universalism is its own faith tradition. We are united not because we believe the same thing, but because we share a commitment to seek truth, practice compassion, and build a more just and loving world. Our practices differ, our languages for the holy differ, but the tradition we share is real, a faith shaped by history, by covenant, by conscience, and by community. Announcements. There are pledge packets for those of you who haven't picked them up yet available. There's also a box for people to put pledge packets in if they choose to do so, rather than mailing them. And there are also cards in the back, I think on the back table there, for visitors to fill out with information if they'd like to be contacted or if they'd just like us to know who they are. Any other announcements?
Good morning. I'm Lillian Fifield, and as you know, next Sunday there's a party happening here, and I'm asking for everyone's help. The party immediately follows the service, so I'm going to need from all of you who are able to help rearrange some chairs. We will have some tables here. So if we can make some circles and then kind of put a table in the middle for food and drinks, that would be really, really helpful. There are also people not part of our church community who will be coming to celebrate J.C. Pratt. So they'll be joining us, hopefully not during the rearranging time, but we also need to be sure to welcome them too. Regarding food, as you heard me talk about the chairs, you realize the party's been moved from downstairs to upstairs. If you are planning to bring food, and it is a hot dish or warm dish, we hope it can fit in a crock pot or on a warmer, or that you have some way of packing it so it can stay warm. If it's a cold dish, of course, it's less of a difficulty. We'll try to get the back table set up so that if you come early and have a dish you want to place on the table, it will be set up and ready for you, okay? Any questions? Oh, I'm so excited we're having a party.
Parties are always wonderful. Additional announcements are in your order of service, along with any upcoming events. Much appreciation goes to our staff, our greeters today, Tammy Greer and Teresa Tinsley, and also to our to Genevieve Gonzalez, our church administrator, and to Jack Tranter on media. In our community today, there are many children and adults, housed and unhoused, facing illness, hunger, and without shelter. Acting in compassion for those who are in need, our service to the larger community is to collect your donations of food and money for the Fish Food Pantry. Our church offering will be later in the service. Your contributions are greatly appreciated and will definitely be put to good use in our community.
You make as much noise as possible as I can on my way up here to light the chalice. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to those joining us in person and to those joining us online. We're so glad that you're here. I'm Pastor Eli Poor, and it's my privilege to serve as your minister for this year. We light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, with the following words. We light this chalice for the quiet power of small things, small acts of care, small moments of courage, small kindnesses that hold the world together. May this flame remind us that what seems small can matter deeply. May it be so. We'll get it lit. Thank you, Kathy. And now our opening song, Rise As You Are Willing and Able, for hymn number 318, We Would Be One. Thank you. And now our affirmation. Let's say that together. It's printed in your order of service. We come together to renew our spirits, to open our hearts, to remember the strength we find in community, and to shape a more just and loving world together. May it be so.
We now take a moment to hold what we're carrying into this day, joys that have found us, and the worries, griefs, and longings that travel with us also. If you'd like to light a candle, you're invited to come forward and form a line to the left. When you share, please say your name, and please keep your words brief so that everyone has time and space in this circle of care.
Hi, I'm Diane. This is Jean, and we're lighting a candle today for Jean's birthday. Also on the 12th, which I share with JC. What an honor.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday to
And here's
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jean. Happy birthday to you.
thank you. Thank you all. I'll get one too.
Might as well.
Good morning. My name's Dana, and I'm lighting a candle for each of my brothers, Jimmy and Randy, who are both having heart difficulties, especially my brother Randy, who had a stroke, is coming back from it, but he was an avid skier, biker, and is 80. And what he said was, well, I am getting older, so these things do happen. But he can't drive, and he can't even ride his bicycle until all of these things come back into order. My other brother happened to run over himself accidentally, getting out of a car that he didn't put in park, and then he ran to get in it, and the door knocked him over, and he ran over his right arm. He didn't break any bones or anything. He said it was lucky that there was a lot of snow, which made the impact a lot softer. So these are to both my brothers, who I love dearly and who were there for me when I had my heart surgery. So my heart goes out to them and to their hearts.
Hi, my name is Tammy, and I'm lighting 2 candles. One is for me because I just got taught to be a greeter, which was so fun, and I appreciate it. And one is for Gemma and Dana for teaching us to do this, and they are so great, and I appreciate them so much. So.
I'm Gemma. I just wanted to remember Jesse Jackson and light a candle to him because growing up, I was in college or something when he was just really starting out and being with Martin Luther King, and I thought he was really dynamic and important, and I want to just remember him for his death today.
And I'm going to light a final candle for those of us who may have kept joys and concerns deep within our hearts.
Do we have anything from Zoom? All right. Please rise as you are able for our next song, Spirit of Life.
Supported by this community's gifts of time, talent, and treasure, your support is what fuels our congregation's mission and keeps the flame of justice, community, and love burning brightly. If you are a visitor, please be our guest and let the basket pass you by. What is given now is received in appreciation of the support of our shared hopes and values. We'll now sing our response, Spirit of Life.
And now, as we arrive into our day of rest and into the space of community, let's pause for a moment. Let's take a slow breath. In the midst of busy days and many responsibilities, we gather here as people who care about this community and about one another. May we take this moment to arrive fully, bringing our attention, our patience, our compassion, and our goodwill into this shared space. I invite us now into a brief moment of silence. Thank you all. So I want to open our message this morning with a story, and it's called Frederick by Leo Lionni. Let's watch that together.
Leo Lionni. All along the meadow where the cows grazed and the horses ran, there was an old stone wall. In that wall, not far from the barn and the granary, a chatty family of field mice had their home. But the farmers had moved away, the barn was abandoned, and the granary stood empty. And since winter was not far off, the little mice began to gather corn and nuts and wheat and straw. They all worked day and night, all except Frederick. "Frederick, why don't you work?" they asked. "I do work," said Frederick. "I gather sun rays for the cold, dark winter days." And when they saw Frederick sitting there, staring at the meadow, they said, "And now, Frederick?" "I gather colors," answered Frederick simply, "for winter is gray." And once Frederick seemed half asleep. "Are you dreaming, Frederick?" they asked reproachfully. But Frederick said, "Oh no, I am gathering words, for the winter days are long and many, and we'll run out of things to say." The winter days came, and when the first snow fell, the 5 little field mice took to their hideout in the stones. In the beginning there was lots to eat, and the mice told stories of foolish foxes and silly cats. They were a happy family. But little by little they had nibbled up most of the nuts and berries, the straw was gone, and the corn was only a memory. It was cold in the wall, and no one felt like chatting. Then they remembered what Frederick had said about sun rays and colors and words. "What about your supplies, Frederick?" they asked. "Close your eyes," said Frederick, as he climbed on a big stone. "Now I send you the rays of the sun. Do you feel how they're golden glow?" And as Frederick spoke of the sun, the 4 little mice began to feel warmer. Was it Frederick's voice? Was it magic? "And how about the colors, Frederick?" they asked anxiously. "Close your eyes again," Frederick said. And when he told them of the blue periwinkles, the red poppies in the yellow wheat, and the green leaves of the berry bush, they saw the colors as clearly as if they had been painted in their minds. "And the words, Frederick?" Frederick cleared his throat, waited a moment, and then, as if from a stage, he said, "Who scatters snowflakes? Who melts the ice? Who spoils the weather? Who makes it nice? Who grows the 4-leaf clovers in June? Who dims the daylight? Who lights the moon? 4 little field mice who live in the sky, 4 little field mice like you and I. One is the spring mouse who turns on the showers. Then comes the summer who paints in the flowers. The fall mouse is next with walnuts and wheat. And winter is last with little cold feet. Aren't we lucky the seasons are 4? Think of a year with 1 less, or 1 more." When Frederick had finished, they all applauded. "But Frederick," they said, "you are a poet." Frederick blushed, took a bow, and said shyly, "I know it."
Very cute story. So before we get started this morning, I actually feel compelled to do a thing, so I'm going to do a thing. I want to light an additional candle here. And this is for the war in Iran. And for the war in Iran. And I'd actually like to open with a brief prayer. I know we're all seeing the news, and it's heavy, and it feels like something that I want to acknowledge before we move on here. So, a prayer for peace, Spirit of life, God of many names and of no name, breath moving through every people and every land, we hold the people of Iran and all who are caught in conflict in our hearts today. Where fear rises, bring courage. Where anger hardens, soften hearts. Where violence spreads, awaken the longing for peace, and help us all remember that every life is sacred, beyond borders, beyond governments, beyond the stories that nations tell about one another. Hold the grieving, protect the vulnerable, guide those with power toward wisdom and restraint, and remind us, even from far away, that our task is always the same: to refuse indifference, to choose compassion, and to keep building the fragile, sometimes stubborn work of peace. May it be so. May we be the ones who make it so. Amen. Thank you for that. So, our topic today is small, and it's about all things small, generally. And I think that in a small town, in a small congregation, it's easy to believe that the biggest changes happen somewhere else. In big cities and large institutions and rooms where people sit around polished tables making important decisions. And that's the story that we're often told, right? That real power lives somewhere else. That history and major decisions are shaped by presidents and CEOs and massive movements with thousands of people marching through the streets. And because of that story, it can be easy, especially in a place like Roseburg, to wonder what difference a small congregation like ours could possibly make. We might imagine that whatever change is happening in the world is happening far away from here, somewhere bigger, somewhere louder, somewhere more important. But I think when we start to look closely at how communities actually change, how courage spreads, how hope grows, and how lives are transformed, the story is really different. Change rarely begins in the halls of power. It begins in small rooms. It begins with small groups of people. People that decide that care and courage and community matter enough to practice them together. A small conversation shifts. Someone tells the truth about their life and it empowers someone else to do the same. A neighbor shows up for another neighbor. Someone chooses kindness when it would be easier to turn away. And slowly, often quietly, this ripple spreads outward. Not all at once, but steadily. And sometimes those small ripples become currents strong enough to reshape the world. So I learned something about that kind of ripple very early in my life. So my family's originally from a town called Anderson. It's a very small town in upstate South Carolina. And when I was 5 years old, my grandfather's job took him from Amarillo, Texas, primarily where I grew up, back to Anderson, South Carolina. And from that point, I spent every summer there growing up. And this was the kind of place where time seemed to move a little bit differently. People knew each other's families. Stories were carried not in archives, but in front porches and kitchen tables and through family stories and community stories. And so my great-grandparents lived in this modest house surrounded by the land that my great-grandfather had worked for most of his life. He had grown up as an orphan during the Great Depression, and as a young man, he became a sharecropper in the South in the 30s and 40s, working land that belonged to someone else. But eventually, he was able to purchase that land he had worked, and once he did, he filled it with life. Tomatoes and peppers and melons and rows and rows and rows of vegetables, anything and everything that the soil would allow. So meat was harder to come by in the years that he grew up, and people who had grown up during the Depression carried those habits with them, I think, for the rest of their lives. But this garden that he cultivated provided not only a living for his family, but food for the community, for neighbors, for all of us. And the meals that came out of that little house felt like something sacred. And I can still see those dinners really clearly. It was fresh greens cooked down with fat back, of course, because we were in the South. Fried okra straight from the garden, corn that had been shucked maybe that afternoon, great big slices of tomato, like sometimes still warm from the sun. Cornbread, of course, because we're in the South again. Fried potatoes and onions. Food that had come from the land, prepared by hands that understood both hardship and gratitude. And those meals were simple, but they carried something deeper. They carried this dignity of survival. They carried the memory of people who had endured lean years together and learned that life is sustained not only by what we consume, but by the care we extend to one another. And looking back now, I realize that those meals were more than meals. They were like these rituals of belonging. So they were gatherings where we had these ordinary things, soil, seeds, sunlight, sweat, and they became something larger. There were moments when the sacred slipped quietly into the ordinary rhythms of life, and that happens so often when we pay attention to it. But there is a moment that really sticks with me that happened years later. So within 6 months of each other, both of my grandparents died. So my family and I traveled from Texas back to South Carolina from their funerals. And what I remember most clearly from that time is the way the community responded. Bags of homegrown tomatoes appeared hanging on the door. Casseroles were left on the porch, these dishes wrapped in foil, dozens of them, right? Food made in kitchens by people who understood that grief is not something a family should carry alone. And then there was the funeral procession. As the cars moved down the road, people walking along the roadside stopped. Some of them removed their hats, and they stood there quietly while the procession passed. And I had never and have never since seen anything like that. It was such a simple gesture, but it carried this kind of reverence, like this recognition that something sacred was happening, that a life had been lived, that a community had been shaped by that life, and that the grief belongs not only to the family, but to the circle of people who have shared that life together. And what I witnessed there, it wasn't a movement, it wasn't history in the grand sense, but it was powerful. It was the accumulated result of decades of relationships, of people bringing their gifts to one another, of neighbors tending gardens and cooking meals and honoring the lives around them. It was a small circle of community, and it mattered. And looking back now, I recognize something else in it. I recognize the presence of the sacred, not in spectacle, not in power, but in just this simple human act of caring for one another. And so what we call the divine, what we don't call the divine, this holy thing, something larger than ourselves, I think it often reveals itself in moments like these, in compassion, in presence, in this quiet dignity of people refusing to let one another face life alone. And that kind of sacredness can be easy to overlook. Our culture tends to celebrate what's loud, what's dramatic, what's visible. But the sacred moves in more quiet ways sometimes. And again and again and again, we see this divine appear in smaller places. in kitchens and gardens and hotel rooms and living rooms, in small congregations like this one, where people gather week after week to remember what matters, to cultivate relationships, to take care of one another. And if all of that's true, then part of our spiritual calling maybe is this: to be faithful to the small, to honor the circles of care that form close to home, to recognize that the work of tending small community is not lesser work. It is holy work. The deeper currents of life often move in these smaller, quieter ways. Which brings us to the story of Frederick. Frederick is not gathering grain like the others. Frederick is gathering something else. Frederick is gathering warmth. He's gathering light, color, and words. And when winter arrives, the community realizes something important, that those things are not luxuries. They are necessities. Communities do not live on food alone. They live on meaning, they live on connection, they live on stories and songs and places and people that remind them who they are. And that is part of the work that spiritual communities exist to do. In a world that is often hurried and anxious and distracted, we gather something precious here. We gather space. We gather space to breathe, space to reflect, space to remember that we are more than our productivity, more than our worries, more than this endless motion of daily life. We gather light in the form of music, poetry, and silence, and friendships, and the presence of people who care about one another. We gather stories that remind us that human life is sacred, that community matters, that love is strong, that when we gather in this way, we encounter the sacred in each other, in remembering who we are. We remember that our lives are bound together. We remember that we belong to something larger than our individual struggles. So in Unitarian Universalism, we speak about the divine in many different ways. Some of us speak of God, some speak of spirit, some speak of love, some speak of the interconnected web of life. But whatever language we use, the insight is similar. The sacred is not only something above us. We don't have a hierarchical relationship. It's something that emerges within us, especially whenever people choose compassion and connection and community. And so that means that every act of kindness, every time we cultivate relationships with one another, in their own small way, all of these become sacred acts. Every gesture of generosity becomes a kind of prayer. Every moment when we show up for each other becomes a glimpse of the world as it could be. And the warmth that we gather here doesn't just stay here, it travels. So we all know the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon game, right? The same thing applies to this. We have so many connections and so many ways that what we cultivate here ripples out into the world. And sometimes it spreads quietly, but it does spread through ordinary lives. This congregation is part of a much larger story. So Unitarian Universalists stand in this long lineage of people who believed that faith should expand human dignity rather than restrict it. And our spiritual ancestors asked difficult questions when doing so was dangerous, and we still do that. So they challenged systems that treated some people as less worthy than others. They insisted that love must be larger than fear. Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists helped lead movements for abolition, for women's rights, for religious freedom, for civil rights, for gay rights, and on and on and on. But these movements did not begin with these massive institutions. They began in small congregations just like this one, rooms where people gathered and asked, what does our faith ask of us? What kind of world are we helping and hoping to build? And how do we begin right where we are? That lineage flows through this community and through all of us. And every congregation, every action, every decision that we make shapes this wider movement. The way we practice generosity here matters. The way we practice compassion here matters. The way we welcome people here matters. The larger culture of faith is built in places just like this one. And none of this happens automatically. Communities exist because people bring their gifts. And these gifts look different for each of us. Some of us bring the gift of music. Some of us bring the gift of leadership. Some of us bring thoughtful questions. Some of us bring organization or deep listening or creativity or generosity or hard questions or challenge. All of that helps this community grow. And some bring what may be the most essential gift of all, and that is just the gift of presence, simply being here, showing up, adding your voice to the songs, your reflection to the conversation, your care to the life of the community. No single gift sustains a congregation. It's the weaving together of many gifts that creates something strong and something beautiful. So just like Frederick gathered warmth and story and color, each of us gathers something that we can offer. And when those gifts come together is when something powerful happens. Community becomes possible. And so that's why stewardship matters. And so when I talk about stewardship, I'm not talking about simply budgets and buildings. It's about sustaining the conditions that make community possible. It's about asking ourselves, what do we want to nurture here? What kind of space do we want to create? A place where people attend, a place where people truly belong, a place where programs happened, a place where lives are nourished, a place where people pass through, or a place where warmth and light are gathered and shared. So when we give this to this community, whether through time, energy, creativity, or financial support, all of those, we participate in the shared work of sustenance and creation. In all of those actions, we say this matters. This community matters. This space of reflection and connection matters, and we want it to continue. Because the truth is this: the world does not change only through massive movements or famous leaders. It changes through circles of people who decide to practice care together, just like us, every day, where people bring their gifts, where warmth is gathered, where courage might grow quietly, but it still grows. And the ripple spreads from one life to another, to another, to another, until this quiet work of love begins to reshape the world. And so it begins, as it often does, in rooms just like this one, who believe that community is worth building. So may we choose together to gather warmth, to gather story, to gather light, to collect presence for all of the seasons ahead. May we cultivate the relationships and the presence and the peace and the belonging and the culture that we want to see reflected in the wider world. May we use this as a proving ground for what we want to become. May it be so. May we be the ones who make it so. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be. And now let's take some time for community conversation.
listening to what you've said today, I never had a community. Not until, well, when I was 6 months old, my father took us from Oklahoma to Texas. He worked in the oil field. From that time on, I counted 16 towns we lived in.
Wow.
By the time we settled in Midland, Texas.
Wow.
16 towns. So up until 4th grade, I was always the newcomer.
Sure.
I was always wondering where I fit in. Always wondering, would I have friends? And many times, just when I thought I had a friend, we moved again. I think that's why this church is so valuable to me. This church is probably my first real community. Even as an adult, I traveled a lot, and I liked the adventure of traveling. But now, I don't have that desire.
Sure.
I'm at home.
That is so special. Thank you so much for that. And we all deserve that space where we belong, right? And we all have a part in cultivating that for one another, right? Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Eileen.
My mind is flashing on a different view of us in community. It's the first time we marched in the Gay Pride Parade with all those wonderful yellow shirts, and we were 20 plus strong. And the first congregation to do that.
Yeah.
We do that often. And the second time around, there was Faith Lutheran and the Methodists, and we grew. So, community. We're a community. March 28th is coming, and the shirts are still sitting there. I hope you'll pick one up and show up, and we'll give you more information later.
Absolutely. Yeah, the visibility is important too. It is, and we've been, our denomination has been forerunners. We've been the forerunners in so many different ways, this congregation included. Yeah. Hey, JC.
My comment is beyond small. When I was in the 4th grade, we lived in Spokane and lived at Fort George Wright, where my father was a doctor and a captain. And I went in town to school. I had already missed big pieces of 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grade. So I was in the 4th grade. But something that we did in that little school, I didn't realize made me so emotional when you spoke of it. Our school was on the road to a funeral place. So whenever a long line of cars slowly went past the schoolyard, it was the habit in that school that no matter what we were doing outside, we stopped. And we watched, and we bowed our heads, and we acknowledged.
Sure.
And I thought, as you said that, I thought, God, the war had so many things about my life. And to have us at it again is tearing me apart.
That is. That's a lot. That really is. That's, we can't help but think of the other small communities that are impacted by that and the relationships that are affected. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Eli. I appreciate your sermon. I grew up in a very small community, population-wise, over a vast area of geographical turf. The school district took in 90 miles of school bus routes.
Oh, wow.
And we all gave food to each other when we had the ability to get back and forth to their houses.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make one comment about the reason you don't see men tip their hats anymore is most men don't wear them.
Sure, yeah.
And baseball caps don't count.
Sure.
Clint Eastwood never wore a baseball cap.
Sure.
Neither did Merlin Hill or Harry Truman. So, thank you for your sermon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what struck me the most about that moment was just the pause. And I haven't seen that, and especially in larger places where, people are busier and there's less connection, and I think that smaller places really give us more opportunities to go deeper, right? And it's just a difference. It's a different culture. Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you.
It looks
all.
like we have someone on
good.
Zoom.
Yeah, please. Hi, folks. So good to see you today. Go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, I was invited to come today. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, hi. I enjoyed this so much, and it's such a good feeling to have like-minded people. It's just, I was very touched by your whole service. I would love to come in person. Right now, my husband is very frail, and I can't take a chance to bring anything home to him. But I totally enjoyed this, and I so appreciate your letting me join. Thank you very much.
We are so glad you're here, and yeah, anything that we can do to make it easier for you to join, reach out to me. My information's on the website, on the order of service, if you've gotten the email, or call the church and we can get that to you and make that happen. We're so glad that you're here.
By the way, I live very close to the church.
Oh, good. So glad that you're here.
Thank you so much.
And your name is Isabel, correct?
Isabel.
Isabel, everyone.
Yeah.
So nice to meet you. Let's wave at Isabel.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you. And Marianne, welcome. So good to see you. Did you have anything today?
Good morning, and I will be there in a little while.
Great.
I grew up in one of the biggest little towns, New York City, which is a world of many, many neighborhoods.
Yes.
Where many people never left their neighborhoods their entire lives.
Absolutely.
So in some places, even in big cities, we have small worlds.
Absolutely.
And small groups of people.
Thank you for that.
I appreciate the sermon very, very much. It was a reminder about that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll see you soon. Thank you both. I'm so glad you could be online with us today and that we're getting this working. It's very exciting, everybody. Yeah. Thank you both. All right, so let's extinguish our chalice. Oh, I'm sorry, we have our closing song, The Fire of Commitment, number 1028. So rise and body your spirit, and let's sing together one more time.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion stories of our living brings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
All right. As we extinguish this flame, we remember that the light does not end here. May the warmth of this community stay with us. May the questions we ask here continue to guide us. And may the care we share here ripple outward into the world. The flame is extinguished, but the light lives on in us. Amen. Blessed be. All right, let's sing Go Lift It Up.
Good morning. Is